Welcome back to another drawing log. It's been quite a while since the last one, 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to take some time to just catch up on what I worked on during these few weeks. I used some of the clips in the Q&A, so you might have seen them, but I didn't get the chance to talk about any of them. So here we go. You might remember at the very end of the last drawing vlog, I was doing some thumbnails. What I wanted to do was do some like VizDev style illustrations for this story that I wrote. I think what happened was that I was going through Irie Pan's schoolism class in which she teaches us how to like photo bash and do like concept art and stuff. So I wanted to practice, and I spent a while like getting a lot of reference for the story, thinking about story moments and thumbnails that I could do, and then I was like, I'm just gonna design the characters and not actually do the exercise that I was gonna do, which happens quite often. Okay, so here is the Pinterest board right now for this story. So it is kind of a mishmash of like Victorian steampunky aesthetics with like city crawler aesthetics. I would say it's kind of like a mix between the setting of Arcane and Howl's Moving Castle, e.g. something very European in architecture with steampunk and sci-fi elements, but with the story and character dynamics of something like Carol and Tuesday, Number 6, Promare, and various Ghibli movies where it's like kind of like girl meets boy, or just basically any story where it's about two different characters meeting each other and then helping each other grow while they save the world from some sort of apocalyptic entity. That's the best kind of story, am I right? So in terms of like character design style, I was mostly looking at the character designer of Eureka 7. He also did some designs for Gundam. I just think his style is super simplistic. It just balances like simplicity and complexity really well. And I also think these type of character designs are kind of like more traditional and classic. We don't see it as often these days. Something like Ghibli is a little bit too storybook, too simple, but something like Promare perhaps is too stylized. So I needed something right there in the middle, and Eureka 7 happens to be it. Actually, a lot of Studio Bones anime has a really good style that I think hits that sweet spot. So the main characters I'm designing here are a thief and a prince. So obviously they're from very different places with very different life experiences. So I need their designs to like contrast each other. The thief is very quick on his feet, so I needed his legs to be apparent in the silhouette. He's kind of flighty, so I feel like all the extra little buckles and edges that I add to a silhouette kind of makes it look like feathers. But at the same time, he's not exactly like a street rat or a grimy type of thief, so more like a con man, so he needs to look at least a little put together. The prince, on the other hand, is the exact type of character who would so easily fall into the traps that this thief sets up because he is very naive. So I needed him to look a little foolish. He's lived a very comfortable life, so I give him a lot of like drapey, round, loose clothing. He also likes to escape and hide, both physically and mentally. So most of his design is like covered up with big, loose shapes. So once I had finished designing these characters, I felt like I had strayed off path a little bit because I had decided not to do clean lines, and clean lines are so important when you want something to be like an anime style. So first of all, the rendering that I decided to use, it was more textured and it was more rough. and there was like very little cell shading. So what that means is that it didn't end up looking very much like a character design that would be in Eureka 7 or any sort of anime really. Another thing is that I kind of realized I spent like a week on this and it really wasn't supposed to take that long. And even though I'm like okay with where the designs ended up, I mean they could be better, but I don't want to spend forever on them because I already spent a week. I felt like I was just trying to avoid doing the challenging thing, which is like actually placing these characters in a scene, in a story moment. And something else was also bothering me, which is how static these characters are. I feel like I can't really understand a character if they're just standing still. They have to be in some sort of motion, and I have to be able to iterate upon like different poses, different expressions. And now I can do that because I have a character sheet for them, except I really needed a change of pace. I like did a whole reflection on my entire artistic practice. I was like, oh my god, something is not feeling right now. So I need to figure out what that is. And after a while, I pretty much figured that I was missing some of the coolness factor that I really wanted from my art. So I tried to return to some sketches that I felt like really embodied that sort of like grit and coolness factor that a character emotion has. And I developed them some more. One of which was this Ayato sketch that I did, because I just feel like it was very underappreciated. Like, come on guys, this sketch was good, but I feel like it wasn't able to reach its full potential yet, so I just started working on it again. And you know what? Unsurprisingly, this felt so much better than what I had just done. I think part of it is that when I was doing the character designs, everything was very careful. And I drew very carefully. Every line was very planned, every shape, every little detail. But when I'm doing this illustration of Ayato here, you can see how fast my hand is moving. Like, I don't care if that line is perfect. I just care if it's like embodying the gesture that I care about. And I think that's something about it, is that how physical art is sometimes that we don't realize, or at least I don't. Is that how like fast we physically move our hand matters a lot. And actually throughout this entire illustration process, there was definitely a sense of urgency that I don't usually feel when I'm doing other art pieces. And it's definitely because Ayato, if you don't know Genshin very well, he was faceless for a long time. We didn't know what he looked like, so this was actually a fan design, fan illustration, but in the middle of it, we got some leaks of what he looked like, and so everybody started posting new fan art of him, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta revise this and get it out as fast as possible. And so what happened was that since I got the feeling that I needed to release this as quickly as possible, but also retain that coolness factor that I desired so much, something very great actually happened, which is that I was able to take this piece to completion very quickly, like way faster than I thought I was capable of. And it taught me a lot about like prioritizing different parts of a process. Like normally I would spend forever on like sketching and line art, and then perhaps get stuck at like flat colors and then meander around for a while with lights and shadows. But since I had such a tight self-imposed deadline for this piece, I had to make decisions very, very quickly about how this was going to look as a finished piece. And it just taught me that, yeah, I can make pieces a lot faster and make them a lot more impactful than I thought I could. So taking what I learned from Ayato, I tried to apply and test those strategies with this new piece that I did for Helen's interview promo. As you can see, I did not really do a line drawing at all, and the sketch even is very, very loose. So once I had the very loose sketch down, I went straight into like color and blocking in some shapes and gestural lines. Just really focusing on the feeling that I want the piece to evoke rather than how to get there the most like accurately. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. And I think this experiment was very successful as I don't think I would have been able to get this sort of result if I spent the majority of the time like doing a line drawing and then filling it in cleanly and all that stuff. And, you know, I got the feeling that perhaps this is what art is about. Like, you find a process that you think works pretty well, and then you iterate upon it over and over again with different subject matter. The last time I remember doing that was like in 2019. I think what happens is that I forget my own processes really quickly. Like, I'll do something, like I'll learn a certain technique and I'll like make a drawing using it to prove that I can do it. And then I'll immediately forget that I can do that. And so every time I start a new drawing, I feel like I'm just starting over when in fact I have a whole database of like different ways I can do things, except I just never like revisit those databases. So we shall see if this process sticks, but for now it feels pretty good. Although I can see how it becomes gimmicky real fast. So now we're all caught up. That was a 12-minute long flashback, but we are at the present week, the present day, and what I worked on this week was mostly the tiger illustration. So Monday I gathered a bunch of reference of tigers and also winter scenes because I wanted this illustration to take place during winter since I wanted to like somewhat reflect my birth, and I was born in January, like in the middle of a winter storm, I think. So I wanted to draw an illustration of this tiger like protecting a figure which was supposed to symbolize me and a bunch of little rabbits. So that was the original idea, and if you know where this illustration ended up, it definitely did not end up there. So we'll see how that happens. Thursday I spent blocking in the colors of the tiger and also working on the stripes and just filling in flats really. Pretty uneventful day honestly, except I did get a package from Sophie Lee. I bought her gesture books because Sophie is one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to gesture. I think personally, I think she started an entire like style trend when it comes to the style of figure drawing. Friday, I'm gonna be honest, I have like no memory of what happened on Friday. All I know is that I did not work on the tiger illustration because I got very distracted by Ayato again, and so I spent a while like just doodling Ayato. And if I look at my planner, it doesn't really say anything about what I did that day aside from calling my parents. So just a fugue day for the black hole that is our lives. I don't know. I'm really not sure what happened. I spent Saturday morning adding some details to the figure. I changed the figure. I was like kind of trying to decide what kind of clothes this person should be wearing. Since it's sort of like a Lunar New Year's piece, I was like, what if she's wearing a hanfu, like a traditional Chinese New Year looking costume? I also was thinking about like making it very modern and making it very representational of something I would wear, for example. Yeah, I just wasn't sure what was going to be the best for this situation, and I think this issue is compounded and really comes back to bite me in the ass later. But aside from that, Saturday I did go out with some friends and we walked around the city and ate some good food. It's really weird going outside. I'm gonna be honest, I don't go outside that much, and there were a lot of people. I was like, wow, is this like what people do? Like go outside on the weekends? It was weird. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm used to COVID or whatever, but it was honestly just weird how many people there were. My profound confusion at people living their normal lives aside, Sunday I started to really add some lighting and atmosphere to this piece. And I had honestly been avoiding doing this because I was very like satisfied with how the stripes were looking, and I was like, I'm gonna have to move on at some point, but I don't really want to because I'm not very competent at what comes next. So as you can see, I ended up changing the figure again, and I gave her more modern clothes like I talked about. I think a massive issue with this illustration that was coming up for me was that it looked fine no matter what kind of situation I put it under. Like, I tested all sorts of lighting situations and I was like, yeah, that works. And this also works. And that also works. It works with the hanfu, it works with the modern clothes. But when everything works, it just means that I'm not focused enough and I don't know what exactly I want to say with it. So I feel like I definitely wasted a lot of time on this piece, like just seesawing between different options and not really knowing which one I wanted. The issue definitely peaked on Monday when I decided that I wanted to post this on Tuesday, so I had to finish it today, and it just wasn't giving me the type of feeling that I wanted. I think perhaps the little girl curled up under a big tiger imagery has perhaps been done before, and also it just wasn't reading very well at all. The illustration as a whole felt a little empty and hollow, especially when compared to the previous two illustrations that I did. So in the rendering process, I decided to get rid of the figure entirely and redraw it and make the new figure something that could offer some sort of compositional interest. So that just means a lot of like flowy leading lines, which I turned into cloth. And as for who the new character is, I like to think of her as a representation of the Year of the Rabbit. So these two competitors are meeting at the brink. I like the idea of the rabbit protecting the tiger. So at first I had repainted the tiger's eyes to be closed so that the tiger could be like the little baby and the rabbit character could be the guardian. But again, even if that works, I decided to just keep the tiger's eyes open and make it a color that matches the rabbit's color scheme. So eventually I finished this piece, good riddance, because I was feeling very irritated by it, and I think that a number of lessons could be learned from my experience doing it. I think first of all, it kind of felt like the type of piece where if I had previously drawn or studied tigers before, tigers and snow before, it would have been much easier, except I tried to go straight in, and in the middle stages I got really irritated at how the tiger was not looking very good, and I didn't know how to render it without like destroying the stripes. And also at one point I got really irritated at the snow, and I repainted it several times. I also got irritated at the figure, as you know, and I repainted her. I think a massive reason for all of this is that I just procrastinated too much. I let too much time pass between me getting the initial idea and spark for the piece and actually working on delivering that feeling. So by the time I had readied myself to like do all the lighting and rendering, my initial direction was gone from my brain, and so I kind of just aimlessly started doing things that looked good, even if it didn't necessarily promote the message that I was trying to put out there. So I think in the future I just need to finish things faster. Like when I get an idea, see it through to the finish as efficiently as possible so that I don't lose the energy that I started with. Alright, let's end this drawing log with some chill studio cleanup and organization. Whenever I get into drawing mode, I tend to get really tunnel visioned and I don't like do anything else except think about the drawing that I'm making. So little things here and there were starting to pile up and bother me a lot. So I pretty much did not draw on Tuesday at all, but I did reorganize my books in my room. Thank you for sticking around for yet another drawing log. I feel like making these does help me a lot since it does make me more productive knowing that I have to produce a video every week about what I drew. So if I don't draw anything, there's no video. So, you know, it's kind of like a win-win. And also it helps a lot to articulate and explain what I'm thinking because I tend to forget these things real easy. So these videos are for me as much as they are for you, and I hope they do help somewhat. So I guess I will just see you in the next one.